Konnichiwa yokoso, YouTube. That's actually Japanese for hello and welcome. Welcome back to Milsurpbros today. Today we're out at the range and we're looking at actually the two rifles that were in our first posted video. When we did that video, we didn't have a lot of time to deal with as far as videoing. And now we're back out and we want to look at them in more detail. The two rifles we are looking at today are going to be the basically the two eras of production of the Type 99 rifle in Japan during World War II. During World War II, there were two different kinds of rifle that were common in use during that conflict for the Japanese Army and Navy. And those would have been the Type 38, which we'll see in a later video. We've actually just recently acquired one, so that's going to be fun. But they also had the Type 99. Now, the 38 was in a 6.5 millimeter cartridge, and towards 1939 the Japanese decided that that was not a sufficiently powerful cartridge, so they switched over to a 7.7 millimeter cartridge, and they had been using that in machine guns before, but then they decided to adapt it to a infantry rifle. Now that is what we see here. We have a soft point 7.5 millimeter bullet loaded here for our early production Arisaka, which is our first rifle here. And over here, we have loaded a lead, it's just sort of a gallery load. It's actually it's an underpowered load for our substitute or last-ditch rifle. Now, the first one we want to look at in a little bit more detail is going to be the earlier production rifle that we have first on the flag here. Now, this is a Nagoya 5th Series Arisaka. You can see that the rifle has its requisite dings and, scratches on the stock from the war. This is not an uncommon thing in rifles of this age, of course, but, it's in pretty good shape for its age. Now, the Arisaka Type 99 was a really excellent rifle. It's actually in the pattern of a German Mauser. They changed the bolt around a little bit, and actually it's a much simpler action as far as that's concerned. But it's sort of in that style. They actually have all the same sort of locking lug system. Their front locking lugs. It's very strong. In fact, in his book, Julian S. Hatcher, in Hatcher's Notebook, he actually notes that the Japanese rifles had some of the strongest action and bolts that were ever produced during World War II. Now, if you look at that action, you can see here that much like the Mausers, it has a release there, and you can come down through the magazine. You can see your extractor here and your locking lugs left and right, and when you come through, it goes in and locks. Okay. Now there is also a locking lug up under here that comes through the backside of the receiver. Again, much like a Mauser pattern rifle. Now, the interesting thing about these rifles is that unlike, say, your Gewehr 98 or a K98, which would have been later, they do not have a switch safety. Interesting about these rifles, they have a safety where you can do that. And once you're in this position, you're unsafe. Nothing will happen. Trigger will not go. Now to undo the safety, all you do is pull there and turn till this little inlet is facing leftward, and then you're ready to go. Now, we're not going to dry fire it just because that's nice to the gun, but it would go, believe me. Now, another interesting feature on this rifle, sorry, come back in, is that you have this sighting ladder on the front, and this is common of basically all of the early series productions. You actually have it aspirated up to 1,500 meters, and unfortunately we're missing this option on this rifle. They did make it for this series, as again the Nagoya 5th series, so they hadn't quite gotten rid of this. But they used to have an airplane sight that would come out here and sort of sit perpendicular to the sight ladder there. It would sit out here, and you'd have notch marks each little bit to say, okay, if the plane is moving this fast, aim such and such a distance left or right. Now, you also have a battle sight which stays there. So if you don't have time to flip up the ladder, or you don't want to shoot it at such a long distance, you're pretty much ready to go as is. Another feature on the receiver is that we do have the Japanese symbols for 99 and then shiki, which actually is always translated, at least in English, as type. Now, that is an early production rifle, or an earlier production. This is a 1943. They hadn't started to make sort of shortcuts in how they were building their rifles at that point. Now, they did start to do that. 1943 is about when they start changing a lot of things in their rifles, start making shortcuts, cutting corners to make their rifles a little less expensive. Now, we have an example here, the second rifle here, that is what a lot of people refer to as a last-ditch Arisaka. These maintain the designation of Type 99. The Japanese did not decide to change that designation, although they will sometimes refer to them as substitute 99s. Now, we'll go over here some of the more common changes that they would make in these rifles, just so you can tell the difference. Now, you'll remember in the regular Type 99, again, they have the sighting ladder. That's gone. They removed that. This, by the way, just as point of reference, is a Toyo Kogyo 35th series rifle. It's actually manufactured by a company called Oriental Manufacturing Company and was under the sort of the tutelage of the Kokura Arsenal in Tokyo. So they were kind of making sure that they were putting these together correctly and that stuff didn't get messed up too badly. Now, on this rifle, again, no sighting ladder. You have a fixed peep sight there. Still a pretty good sight. You can see pretty well through it. I don't know if we're getting a good picture there, but you can see there's a hole there, and if you line it up, which we're having some difficulty doing. But anyway, it's a good sight, actually. It's halfway decent. But that is a big change there. They also don't have the ears on the front there, which you would have had on your earlier production rifles. That's a big difference. This is not as well protected, but we haven't seen, at least on this rifle, that it's been beaten up too badly. Another major difference, if you come down to the other end of the rifle, is that in early production rifles, you have, much like basically every military in the world, a cupped butt plate, or at least a metal butt plate of some sort, screwed onto the end with tangs on here, holding it on there. And that protects the rear end of the rifle, which of course you need if you're ever going to hit anything with the backside of your rifle. But when you come down towards the end of the war, at least in 1944 and 45, and in some cases really late 43, they started changing in some of the arsenals to a wood butt plate. Now, this may seem hilariously laughable to you, but the Japanese rifles are actually very, very well put together. This one, generally speaking, is of lower quality here just because you don't have a metal butt plate. And this is actually still just held on with nails. The wood here is actually thicker, at least from the Toyo Kogyo arsenal, than some last-ditch. So you'll actually find that our example of the last-ditch rifle is actually of a ever so slightly markedly nicer quality. It's held on with 2 nails instead of 2, or possibly 1 in even some cases, where they would have used just an epoxy or sort of glue. Now, you'll also notice on these 2 rifles that the quality of manufacturing goes down significantly on the last ditch. Here you're seeing first the mid-war or earlier war production, and you can just tell that the smoothness of the machining is not nearly as nice on the last ditch. There's a lot of difference in sort of the quality of engineering and manufacturing going on there. All the requisite parts, like the releases and everything, and the floor plates and the trigger guards, are all still there, but you are going to notice a drop in quality of work going on there. The bolts, again, because they didn't change the rifle designation at all, really, during the war, are going to be quite similar, at least in function. You have here are 2 bolts. Now this here is the last ditch, and this is the earlier or mid-war production. Again, as far as function and everything, relatively speaking, they're the same. Okay. However, you will notice on these two a remarkable difference in the quality of fit and finish. This, being the earlier war one, has a knurled edge. It makes putting that safety on a lot easier. And I can just tell you that from having used both of them. This one, you're just seeing globs of metal that hold the thing together. I mean, the welding, they didn't work that up at all. But again, functionally, very similar, well-built bolts. Just not as nice looking on this end. Now, you will notice a lot of these changes, at least in manufacturing there. There's another one they did for saving time on the Type 99s, where they remove this handguard in the substitute 99. Now, they did that one to save wood. Japan doesn't really have that much wood to begin with when they're building their stocks. But, you know, when you're working with limited resources, you remove whatever you can that's not, you know, a functional issue. For Japanese soldiers, I'm sure they were very happy to have a rifle rather than a handguard. Hold down here. Don't hold up here. You'll burn your hand. Okay? Now, you'll also notice, because they've removed that handguard, that the aesthetics of this rifle are also not as nice because they're leaving turning marks on the barrel. Those may be under here, but for the sake of not ruining any of our rifle or the historic value of it, we have not removed that, and probably will not. But they just flat out didn't put it on this. So, I think that's a pretty good overview of kind of your differences in the rifles. Oh, well, one other thing before we do go on to shoot. There is another removal that they did for the last stitch. In the early to mid-war production, you see that we do have a cleaning rod. This actually, fun fact, is a short cleaning rod. It's a 4.5-inch cleaning rod. It only really goes to about here. They did that in the Series 5 Nagaya arsenal. This one, however, is nothing at all. There's nothing to clean your rifle. They figured they needed to churn out enough rifles quickly that everybody be armed, but, you know, didn't necessarily worry about having a cleaning rod because they figured either another soldier in your unit would have one or that you could figure it out some way or another. Now, we would like to thank a Duncan O. McCollum, who we have a book from today. We actually purchased this fairly recently and have done a lot of research, so we can talk to you about this today. His book, Japanese Rifles of World War II, was exceptionally useful in some of the research that we did today. And you can see it covers, you know, markings on the rifles, old, you know, series manufacturers, and you can see on some of these rifles, actually, let's show you that there are manufacturing numbers here. So you can tell that's a Nagaya series rifle there, and in this case, it's on this side, that this is a Kokura arsenal under the manufacture of a Toyo Kogyo. But anyway, so we were able to go through this book and find a lot of information about what should and shouldn't be on these rifles, and it covers things like the Type 44 and the 38 and the Type I, which is an Italian manufacturer, as well as sighting styles. See there on the last stitch style, and as well as the ones that are on the early production, etc. And you can go through what did they change on all these rifles. So if you're looking for a good comprehensive book on what's going on with these rifles, what series you're getting it out of, what did they change on that series, it's a really nice book. And we do recommend that you get it if you're looking for technical information on your rifles. Now, let us go out and shoot and see how they do. All right, first thing today, we want to look at our mid-production, early war production Nagaya 5th Series Type 99. Again, this is the one with the nicer finish. You know, it's going to be more common to your earlier war production. Let's see what we can do here. And we've got our pumpkin targets downrange. Since it's that kind of time of the year, let's have some fun. Doing real well there. And that's what you get out of the Type 99. Really good, solid shooting. Good as any 30-06 that they make today. So we've looked at the Nagoya series early production Type 99. Now let's see how the substitute or the last ditch does. Again, Japan makes really good rifles. Even when they're kind of cutting corners, you're not looking at something that's going to be lacking in quality, at least as far as being a shootable, serviceable rifle. Now, some people will become a little concerned about the manufacturing quality of these rifles. I mean, sometimes you'll see rust or minor pitting, that kind of thing. And in some cases, you'll find rifles that have really major issues. This one we have had checked out. It does work very well. We don't have any problems with it, and we're reasonably confident about its safety. And we're downloading our loads to it, so we're being really nice to the rifle anyway. But if you have concerns about your Type 99 last ditch, or any gun for that matter, do get it checked out by a gunsmith. We do recommend that here. But let's see what this one will do. Keep in mind this is a 70-year-old rifle, so we occasionally have lighter strikes with this one, but we'll see how quickly we can get it running. Here we go. There we go, there's a good one. There's a good one. Speed. There we are. Yeah, that's some pumpkin destruction. Again, hey, for a 70-year-old last-ditch rifle, really good. Oh, and as a final note, we do want to let you sort of see a bayonet for the Type 99. This would also be, I believe, affixable to the Type 38. They made these universally for the two rifles. This one, however, was supplied with our last-ditch Arisaka. You can see the fit and finish on this bayonet, and as you'll see on the blade here, is not fantastic. You're not seeing like your samurai sword sort of construction, but it's certainly sharp enough to act as a final use sort of bladed weapon. You can see on the manufacturer's mark here, this is under the Nagoya arsenal. This is actually the symbol for a sewing machine company, which I forget the name of, but we'll mark somewhere in the middle or the bottom of the video there for you. It's a simplified sort of design. There's not a twist up like you'll see on some of the nicer bayonets, and it's got a squared off handle. But, you know, functionally it still works. And, hey, for fun, let me show you something. Since we've had our pumpkin targets today, and some of them it's just passing through, again, these rounds are traveling so fast that we're just punching nice little holes with, you know, sort of gigantic exit wounds. You see we actually have done some destruction to our pumpkins there. But this is the video part I'd like to call I Choppy Your Pumpkin. Let's see what we can do here. Now, as it is a straight bladed weapon, you can, of course, you know, just kind of stab your enemy. Stab him many times and possibly cause his end. But you know what you can also do, because this is a Japanese weapon, and they used to call these actually sword bayonets, you can use it like a sword. You can chop downward, put them in half like that, or you can chop across like this. And, you know what? It's not exactly a samurai sword, but it'll do the job. Hey David, you know what's better than one Arisaka? Two Arisaka. At the same time, yes sir. Let's see what we can do here. We're gonna kill some more pumpkins. Here we go. Make ready. Load. Aim. Fire. I finished a little slower than you, but hey, Arisaka, a fun gun to own, and I think you should too. Thanks, YouTube. Have a good one. Bye.